Why are so many dogs struggling with health issues, and even dying too soon? World-famous actress and passionate animal advocate Katherine Heigl says the answer may be hiding right inside your dog's food bowl. She reveals that the way most kibble and canned foods are cooked can release harmful compounds that may trigger problems like stiff joints, itchy skin, bad breath, and even those dreaded mushy poops. But here's the exciting part. Heigl and her team say they have discovered canine superfoods. Simple foods and herbs that could help transform your dog's health, from smoother digestion to fresher breath to more energy and mobility. And she's sharing exactly what every dog owner needs to know in a free, short video. If your dog licks their paws, eats grass, has tummy troubles, or just isn't acting like they used to, you need to see this. Watch Katherine Heigl's free video now at undertowpet.com. That's undertowpet.com. Your dog's health will thank you.
Welcome back to Undertow Realms, podcast of the weird and the wicked. I'm your host and producer, Fred Greenhold, here for the 4th episode of our new season, Familiar Haunts. Today's story is really special to me. It's penned by another familiar Undertow contributor, Morgan Sylvia. She's one of the co-writers on Season 2, Blood Forest, as well as the Blood Forest spinoff, Season 5, The Pulse. She wrote the novella Carrion Harvest in Season 11, and finally, the standalone short story, The Agony Chamber. And today, in honor of spooky season, we are getting witchy with To Dance the Witch's Circle Again. This is a story that, when I read it, it both riveted and haunted me. Morgan's writing has such a primal, feral energy to it, and it has a glorification of the wild ways that left me with a sense of longing, and yet has a very jagged, sharp edge to it. It's a story that turns the tables. Characters ordinarily portrayed as the bad guys are instead facing society itself as a monster. It's a story about being an outsider and watching with horror as your neighbors are dragged away secretly in the night, and how, with a bit of magic, there might be a way of turning the tables. Enjoy this one, To Dance the Witch's Circle Again. Read to you by Jessica Taiga.
I knew something bad was coming, even before the day I caught Janet Harlow spying on me. There'd certainly been no shortage of omens. A few nights prior, the sun had turned blood red at sunset against a dreary, rain-filled sky. Shortly after that, I'd pulled a loaf of bread from the oven to find it split down the middle. And just the night before, I dreamt of walking through muddy water beneath a double moon. These things all warned of ill fortune, and my own scrying only confirmed that the ominous tidings were valid. But Jeanette's appearance was much more ominous, and far less cryptic. I had chanced to look out my cottage window and seen the pallid, thin face of the cordwainer's wife watching me. I knew it was her. The sallow orange color of her hair would have given her away even if I hadn't seen her face. She stood in a tangle of bracken at the edge of my herb garden, poorly concealed by the branches of my rowan tree, glaring at me with the same vicious look I'd seen at the market that day. The foolish woman turned and ran as soon as I saw her, branches snapping as she raced back for the village. But the damage was done. As I turned away from the window and looked at the items spread across my wooden table, a cold sense of foreboding cut through me. Pyewacket twisted in my arms. I muttered, turning the ferret in my hands. Ye could have warned me. I think I knew even then what was coming. I still clearly remember the day they came for my grandfather, even though that bright August afternoon seems like only yesterday. I can almost hear the sound of the scythes sweeping through the barley, the lowing of the oxen, the buzz of birds and tree frogs. The air smelled of rain and earth, a thick, loamy scent that hung over the fields like a blanket. I was cheerful because Grandma had promised honey cakes and swan for supper as a special treat, and because I had a new red puppy at home. The peace was shattered by the thunder of hoofbeats. The minister rode up first, his eyes cold and hard. He brought 6 men with him just to arrest one elderly farmer. I was very young then, only 6 or 7. I didn't understand what was happening as charges were read. I only remember them putting Grandad in heavy chains and shoving him into the back of the cart. They said he was a conjurer. They said he trafficked in nightmares and bartered flesh and souls with the lords of hell. They accused him of hexing his neighbor's chickens and causing 4 sheep to take ill. After only a few days in prison, he confessed to these things and more. He claimed he'd made a pact with the devil and conjured up a storm, and then laid an illness on old Mary Martin. I found out years later that they'd sent for a professional witch pricker to pierce his skin with needles, looking for a spot that would not bleed and was impervious to pain. This would mark the place where the devil had touched him to seal their pact. A few days later, they'd taken Grana's fine silver, along with our milk cow and several bushels of barley and beer, to pay the witch pricker and executioner, and to account for the expenses of keeping Grandad jailed. The minister insisted the accusations were true, but I recalled only kind eyes and kind words. "Sorcerer," they whispered. Then they hung him from the tree. I'd been fool enough to think the hunts were over. Now, as Janet rushed back across the moors to the village, I felt a chill settle into my soul. There was a sudden scratching above me from the thatched roof, which was followed by the hoot of an owl. The sound startled me, and I jumped, jarring Pyewacket. The ferret glared at me. I was tempted to drop him, but I learned that lesson already. Once, I'd accidentally let him slip from my arms. As soon as he hit the ground, I felt an unseen hand shoving me, and I, too, took a terrible spill, bruising my hip, twisting an ankle, and spraining an elbow. I'd had to hobble my way into market. Worst of all, I hadn't been able to dance at the Beltane Circle. I loved the dances, the freedom of spinning free and wild, the drums and flutes filling the air with song that fueled me like fire. Pyewacket wriggled in my arms. I put him down gently. Outside, the familiar patter of rainfall filled the air as I brewed a cup of tea and sat down, turning the week's events over in my head. I'd known, even as I refused Janet Harlow's request to borrow some corn mash, that it was probably foolish to deny her. But she'd proved time and again that such loans would never be repaid, although her husband's shoemaking business was faring well enough. That woman wouldn't have paid her debts if she'd had all the gold in the king's treasury. I told her I simply hadn't a bit to spare. She'd peered down her long nose at the baskets of eggs and apples I was selling. "Your hens are laying well enough," she said. "None affected by the blight." I shook my head. "Nay," I said. "Did you want eggs?" She ignored this. She also ignored Jane Henney and Elspeth Klein, who were waiting to buy eggs. Her daughters, Elizabeth and Margaret, stood silently beside her, glaring at me. They both had the same red hair and pale skin as Janet, although it suited them far better. They would have been pretty enough but for the sour looks that never left their faces. Janet's son, James, peeked out from around her skirt and, smiling shyly, asked for an apple. I knew that to refuse 2 requests would draw her ire, so I handed him a red fruit. He bit into it greedily as Janet pummeled me with questions about my goats and chickens. After Janet's 10th or 11th question, I wished her a good day and, looking past her, cheerfully greeted Jane and Elspeth. Janet gave a hiss of disapproval, then turned her back on me and headed off across the muddy market square, her children close behind her. The girls were both carrying several packages. I saw Janet enter the flesher's shop and suspected that she'd shortly emerge with a choice cut of meat, mutton or venison, perhaps. She cast me a withering look as she passed me the next day, but did not stop. I knew full well where the ire had started. I was sorry for the loss of her youngest child. We all were. But the babe had been born with long fingers, a sure sign of a short life, and then the fever had touched him. Our graveyard was filled with those who'd been taken by plague that year, though I dare say I'd kept a good many souls out of it. Janet had demanded my aid, and then done none of the things that could have helped the bairn. She'd kept her windows locked and her mirrors hanging, and had refused the healing elixirs and potions I'd made for the child. I doubted she'd bathed the babe daily or given him whiskey or oatmeal and water as I'd suggested. I did everything I could, but to no avail. She'd even thrown the charm I'd offered back at my feet, saying she'd have no such thing in her home. Never mind that she'd gone to every cunning woman within a day's ride for love charms when she'd first cast her eye on Tim Harlow. And now, this. A sharp pain in my ankle brought me out of my reverie. I looked down and saw Pyewacket. He'd drawn blood with his bite, and not for the first time. I put the ferret back into his clay pot. He stared up at me, disapproval clear in his inky black eyes. I got his bowl, filled it with goat milk and bread, then took my bodkin and pricked my finger. 3 drops of blood fell into the milk. The ferret ate quickly and quietly, and then looked up at me, chittering. "Nay," I said, "best leave that old sow alone for now." That night, I dreamt of black wings and acrid smoke, and when I woke, I smelled ashes and burnt hair instead of peat smoke. Try as I might, I could not shake the feeling of foreboding. The next day at church, the Harlow women glared at me through the entire service, as Minister Stewart warned that the devil was afoot and preached about the foolishness of women who had the audacity to assume we could think for ourselves. I couldn't help but notice that, despite Janet's inability to buy a sack of mash, the 3 of them all wore brand new kirtles. Elizabeth's was a pretty yellow, Margaret's a sky blue, and Janet's was a soft green. And in Janet's eyes, I saw the same feverish hatred I'd seen in the minister's cold gaze so long ago. Restless and uneasy, I made charms to protect myself. I wrote a glyph of protection on a bay leaf and burned it in a candle. I walked all morning in a cold, drizzling rain to find a sprig of white heather for luck. I went all the way around the loch. But it was too late. Autumn had already closed in, and the heather was dormant. By the time I got home, darkness had fallen, and it was black as the Earl of Hell's waistcoat. Not a fortnight later, Gilly came quietly to my cottage. She arrived long after dark, but I didn't ask whether her husband Thomas would miss her. I knew she kept a besom, or small straw broom, in her place in bed, which Thomas would think was herself. "Did ye hear about Isabel Gowdy?" she asked. I shook my head. "She confessed voluntarily. There was no arrest, no torture. She went herself to Minister Forbes at Aldearn and ran her tongue." I stared at her in disbelief. "You're out of your head," I said. "That can't be true." "It is. She named her entire coven, and others besides. She admitted to making a puppet to bewitch and kill the laird's boy, to witching cattle and stealing milk and corn, and to killing 3 souls with elf arrows. She's wagging her tongue as though it's bewitched. I guess the girl's determined to have company on the pyre. She sipped the tea I offered her, closing her eyes. "Pure, dead brilliant," she said. "You do make the best tea." A moment later, she slapped her forehead. "Ugh, I almost forgot what I came to tell ye. The Samhain celebration will be at Earlseat Hills. We'll drink and dance as always. I've a list of things for ye to bring." My stomach twisted in a knot. My throat was dry. "Isn't it dangerous?" I said. "Aye," Gilly said. "We could be arrested or killed at any time, any of us. I could take ill tomorrow or tumble down the stairs and break my neck. But that's all the more reason to dance, isn't it?" Leave it to Gilly to look at the bright side of a storm. I suppose. "Be happy while ye live," Gilly said, "for ye'll be a long time dead." We sat for some while, careless of the time, talking. Eventually, as always, we ended up giggling and reminiscing over the fun we'd had through the years. Oh, Gilly and I had sown much mischief together, some gleeful, some coldly. We held similar views on most things. We'd bend over backwards to help those who were good to us, but never hesitated to cast a curse on our enemies, those who'd wronged us 3 times or more. She, too, was frightened and wary of the witch-finders. Her Grana had been caught in the madness of possession at Laudon, in France. A fallen woman, the poor thing had been sent to live with a cousin here in Scotland, where no one need know that her babe had not only been conceived outside of wedlock, but likely behind the convent's walls. Soon after, the rest of the family had fled to the New World, leaving her behind. At last, Gilly stood to leave. "I must be back," she said. "Thomas will wake soon. Ugh, I almost forgot. Meet Mary Lamont and Janet Allen and I in the graveyard on the night of the new moon. Ye'll remember what to bring for Samhain?" I nodded. She winked 3 times, which had been a secret signal of ours since girlhood. She stepped lightly out the door. Then she was gone, speeding through the night to her own home. Days trickled by, pretending to be normal. Autumn painted the land in red and gold, but it was cold fire. That year was unusually chilly. I kept up about my normal affairs, tending to sick cattle, offering poultices and herbs, midwifing, and selling apples and eggs and cheese and herbs at market. I helped old Dame Crowder clear her lungs of a nasty cough, set the broken leg of Jacob Heady's daughter's kitten, and cured a mean old goat of fever. Each night, I sat close to the fire, wrapped in my thickest blanket, but I just couldn't keep the chill out of my bones. As Samhain drew close, I prepared the things Gilly had asked for. I made a bag of spiderwebs, oak galls, toad entrails, some barley, fingernail clippings, a hare's liver, and bits of cloth. I mixed these things together and steeped them in water overnight. I never made it to the Samhain celebration, nor did Gilly. She was arrested in late October as Isabel's statements filtered through the courts. Like Isabel, Gilly confessed. She admitted to cursing Elspeth Biddy with sickness after Elspeth had deliberately trampled her seedlings. She also confessed to hexing Adam Taylor's cow, stealing milk and corn from her neighbors with spellcraft, dismembering a man who still hung on the gallows, and healing young Alexander Burns' crippled leg with a charm. But when I heard that she had admitted to digging up the body of an unbaptized child and casting nightmares on the baker's young daughter, I began to sob and shake uncontrollably, for I knew what those lies meant. They'd only wrest such tales from Gilly if she were in agony. And when I heard that she'd named sweet old Nan Hendrick as a witch, I knew for certain she was being tortured. 12 more were taken that week. The hills and lochs rang with the sounding cry of the witch hunts. Word of the craze spread from the highlands to the shore. At service, Minister Stewart ranted and raved about the devil. In town, the bells of the kirk rang by themselves one night, and then a hen no one owned was found dead in a pond. I kept to my house, letting my customers come to me. But few people crossed my doorstep in those chilly weeks. Even my most regular customers stayed away, and I knew it wasn't due to the dreary weather. Isabel and her coven burned together on one of the only sunny days we had that autumn. Shortly after this, Mary Lamont and Janet Allen brought me word of more arrests and new instructions from our coven leader. Then, they too were arrested. Marie was accused of sending nightmares to the laird's wife and sending her pigs to trample her neighbor's garden, and Janet of using her familiar, a red hare, to spoil the milk from a villager's cow. They confessed, in the end, to much more than that. They too sang to the witch-pricker's needle, saying they'd dined with the devil and pledged themselves to him and sent their familiars out to torment people and animals alike, stolen grain and eggs, and made the brewer's ale go bad. Finally, on the night of the new moon, he came. I heard the flutter of great black wings outside and opened my door to find him waiting. I dropped immediately into a curtsy, then stood and stepped back so he could enter. "They're coming for you now," he said. "They've just left the kirk." I choked back a sob. My knees gave out and I fell, rather than sank into the wooden chair. Fear grasped my guts in an icy grip. I was supposed to be stronger than that, but all I could think of was poor Granda. Memory brought me back through the years to that bright and terrible day. I saw it all again in my mind's eye. Granda hanging in silhouette, a shadow against the sun. His body had turned slowly, moving clockwise with the northern wind. I'd looked up into the sky as the horizon darkened and seen a rook carrying his soul to the clouds. I remember running into the rising storm, looking down the whole time, seeing nothing but the muddy hem of my ragged dress and my bare feet softly crushing the wet grass. I went into the haunted wood near the ruined tower where I knew no one would follow me. He was waiting for me there, in the mossy, ancient forest, wrapped in shadow and sunlight. He touched my chin with an icy finger and raised my tear-stained face, asking if I should like revenge. I swore my allegiance then and there. The forest wrapped itself around me, as did the years. When I was of age, he brought me to the coven and sent Pyewacket to me. I grew from an orphan child into a bruised and unhappy bride, to a young widow, to, finally, a respected, cunning woman. I'd controlled my own destiny. Until now. Looking back, I saw the threads of time that bound this moment to that. It was all a cycle. I understood that now. My great-great-grandfather had been one of the first to die at North Berwick. In 1589, King James had determined that witchcraft had kept him from bringing his fiancée, Princess Anne of Denmark, to Scotland by raising storms and sending devils to climb up the keel of her ship. The devil had told that ill-fated coven that James was their worst enemy, and that terrible things would happen when Anne set foot on Scottish shores. That foreboding had proved true, though in the end it was their own actions that started the horrors and fueled the king's witch-hunting frenzy. Hundreds had died in that first crazed hunt, thousands since. And now it was starting again.
Hi there, Fred here. As the weather cools, I am swapping in the pieces to keep me cozy. Clothing that is warm, durable, and built to last. And Quince delivers every time, with wardrobe staples that'll carry you through the season. Some of my favorites are their 100% Mongolian cashmere sweaters, starting at just $60, as well as classic fit denim and real leather and wool outerwear that looks sharp and holds up. In particular, I have my eye on one of their Mongolian cashmere blazers, which looks unbelievably elegant and timeless. For an environmentalist like me, I also appreciate that they partner directly with ethical factories who use technologies like solar power to reduce their footprint. Also excited that they offer more than clothing. Think kitchen and bath, bedding, and travel accessories, all with the same combination of quality and affordability. Layer up this fall with pieces that feel as good as they look. Go to quince.com/undertow for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada, too. That's QUINCE.com/undertow, free shipping and 365-day returns, quince.com/undertow.
You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Progressive loves to help people make smart choices. That's why they offer a tool called Auto Quote Explorer that allows you to compare your Progressive car insurance quote with rates from other companies. So you save time on the research and can enjoy savings when you choose the best rate for you. Give it a try after this episode at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy.
Anyone can follow. It takes something special to be an original, which is why the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV arrives with new ways of surrounding you in luxury, including the ultra-wide 48-inch panoramic display and the multi-sensory Lincoln Rejuvenate experience. A true original never stops evolving. So meet the 2025 Navigator, the original that's all new and better than ever. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Lincoln and Navigator are trademarks of Ford or its affiliates.
I thought of running, but where would I go? Already the leaves had fallen and the wind was growing cold. I could not afford passage to New Scotland, nor would I survive a winter alone on the moors. Even if I fled to the Highlands, the accusations would only follow me. He shook his dark head, as though he had read my thoughts. Ye cannot escape them. You know that. I looked out the window. Already I could see the dim spark of torches through the trees. They were far off. Because of the way the land dipped and rose, it would take them some time yet to reach me. He held something out. I took it carefully. It was a piece of cloth upon which certain runes and glyphs had been writ. A thin lock of orange hair lay upon it. A smaller packet lay within it. I did not open it to examine the contents. It had a strange smell, one that was hard to identify, but was not unpleasant. Here, he said. Prick your finger. You'll need to add 4 drops of blood, 1 on each corner. Add 1 of your fingernails and a lock of your hair, braided to the one inside. Tie it with black thread and then bury it outside, beneath the oak, but not too deep. I'll give you the words to speak when it's done. Hurry. I cast him a questioning look, but all I saw in his dark eyes was my own reflection. I did as he said. When it was done, I could see the torches in the valley through my window. They were closer now, though still a ways off. "Burn the book," he said. I took the grimoire from its spot under the floorboard. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it, but I cast it into the fire. It had taken me decades to compile the knowledge encased in its hide covers, but the pages, and my life's work, were reduced to ash in mere moments. When I straightened, he touched my forehead and breathed a rune into the air. A sense of peace fell over me like a blanket. My nerves calmed. I felt disconnected from my body, as though I were watching these things through a thick glass, rather than experiencing them myself. I realized suddenly that though I could hear him, I could no longer see him. I reached out and felt him take hold of my hand. His skin, as always, was ice cold, far colder than any human being's should be. But then, I'd always had my suspicions about that. "You will dance in the circle again," he said. He kissed me tenderly and then slipped into the night. I heard again the sound of great wings. A moment later, the squeals of startled horses carried across the meadow. He would not have been able to resist frightening them, even knowing that he sealed my fate in doing so. The hoofbeats were approaching. Pyewacket watched from the shadows. I told him. "Best hide now." The ferret fled for his earthen container. I carried it outside and put it in the bracken beyond my herb garden. "Fend for yourself," I said, scratching his furry forehead one last time. A lump rose in my throat. "Where that gray dog? Ye'd make him a good lunch, I think. But I imagine ye'll be sent to another soon." I neatened up the cabin, straightened up my herbs. I threw the anise seed, foxglove plantain, St. John's wort, and ragwort into the fire, along with the things I'd gathered for Samhain. I hung my cooking pots neatly from the shelf and banked the fire, covering the remnants of the book. Though I wasn't hungry, I ate cheese and dark bread and drank some ale, trying not to dwell on the fact that I might never enjoy a decent meal again. By the time they rode into the yard, I was ready. Minister Stewart's voice rang through the night. "Bessie Smith," he said, "you are arrested on suspicion of witchcraft." Things became a blur at that moment. I only vaguely remember being bound and put into the cart. I was brought to the kirk and kept in the steeple overnight while the winds howled around me. In the morning, they made me walk backwards towards the minister, and a long list of accusations were set against me. The Harlows were there, of course. Janet insisted I'd sicken James by gifting him a hexed apple. Elizabeth and Margaret claimed that I cursed them with sickness as well. Both said they'd had dreams in which I'd danced with the devil and called a horrible storm upon the village. Adding to the suspicions were the facts that I had no children, that my animals were healthy, and my clothes were too clean. I had also often been seen talking to my old red dog a few years prior. Gilly, I found, had also accused me of joining her in hexing the villagers. I knew what would happen next, but to know something and to experience it are two entirely different things. I was taken to a dank prison cell to await the assize, the quarterly courts where my fate would be decided. They brought me into darkness, into shadows that hung thick with screams and misery. As they escorted me past the other cells, I noticed a familiar figure in the shadows, hunched and miserable. Gilly's skin was so covered with bruises, cuts, and filth that I could not distinguish wounds from dirt. Her nails were ruined, her face bruised and swollen, her fingertips a pulpy, blackened mess. I saw the witch pricker's handiwork. Her body was covered with what seemed thousands of tiny cuts. I broke away from my escorts just long enough to stop and look at her through the bars of her cell. "Gilly, what have they done to you?" She looked at me, but her eyes were dead, glazed. "I'm sorry," she said. "I canna help it. I canna handle the pain." I had every reason to hate her for her role in my arrest, but I could not. Looking at her bruised and broken form, I could see nothing of the happy child she had been, back when we'd chased each other across the moors and filled her grandma's pewter dish with rainwater for scrying. "It's all right," I told her. Then they shoved me forward, pushing me away from her. Time stopped. Days, hours, minutes, seconds, and weeks became indistinguishable from one another. There were only cold, dark moments, filled with fear and pain. The witch pricker's needle pierced a million tiny holes in my resolve, and secrets slipped out through each of them. They ripped the words from my flesh with hot iron and steel, washed them from my hands with boiling oil, shook them from my bones by suspending me on cruel chains. At first, I told them truths, that we rubbed magical ointments on ourselves and left our bodies to fly through the night, that we laughed and danced and sang at night and paid homage to the devil of our coven, who we all knew was really only John Taylor in a mask. I said that we stole wine from the kirk and replaced it with water, and broke into the laird's house, eating his food and drinking his ale while he and his wife slept sound, due to a potion we'd slipped them. Then, when they had dug and carved and cut all the truth from me, I offered lies. Mad, delicious lies. I, too, sang to the witch pricker's needle. I told them the most incredible things I could think of just to make it stop. I told them I flew through the air on velvet wings, sending plagues and nightmares through the land with blown kisses. I told them I raised a demon in the form of a toad and sent it out every night to wreak havoc on the innocent. I told them that I'd supped with the Queen of Fairy herself and drunk blood from the skulls of the dead under a full moon at the fairy court. I made up 100 lies, each more fantastic than the next. All of the pleasure and bounty and fortune I had given others was taken from me threefold, a wage paid in pain. Even when I was permitted to rest, the sound of screams echoing through the dark stone passages tormented me. Eventually, they determined that I had said enough. They left me alone in the dark, and I shed my humanity piece by piece. At last, it came time for the assize, the quarterly trial. It was winter by then, a cold, blustery day. I was brought into the courtroom along with several others from my coven, including Marie, Janet, and poor Gilly, who had to be carried. I kept trying to catch her eye, but she gave no response. The flesh that encased her still breathed and pumped blood, but Gilly was already gone. The trial did not last long. They offered Janet a chance to prove her innocence by reciting a prayer, but she fumbled and failed and sealed her fate. Marie passed that test, but she had a deformed toe and a large brown devil's mark on her neck, so it made no difference in the end. Janet was there, her eyes gleaming as she filled the air with accusations. "She gave my James an apple," she said. "He took ill the very next day with fevers and chills and still sickens. She hexed my chickens and cursed my husband's best all so that he canna work." She went on, embellishing her original tale, this time adding accusations that I'd had her bairn replaced with a changeling, and that she'd seen me suckling a serpent. I nearly opened my mouth to say I'd only been holding my ferret, but it would have done me no good. If I'd been capable of doing half of what she accused me of, I'd have been sitting on Scotland's throne myself. After what could have been moments or years, the Sheriff Depute lifted his thin, bony finger, pointing at me in accusation. I stared at the huge ring that decorated his gnarled skin, wondering where I'd seen it before. Then I remembered. He'd poured our wine at the Beltane celebration, which we'd celebrated with 5 other covens in the hills above Oxley Forest. The voices of the congregation rose in unison. I looked at them as they called for my death. Their eyes were cold, flickering. I shut my eyes and saw them again, dancing with me in the night. Witches in the circle at night, churchgoers in the daylight. The gavel descended with a crack that split my world, my life, into 2 pieces. I was to be put to death, given to the fire. I heard the verdict in a daze. The next day, I woke to a clamor from outside. I could see nothing since my cell had no window. They brought me again to the torturer's room. I feared another session, but it was only to sign paperwork giving my property to the laird to pay for my food and upkeep and the cost of my torture and execution. When they brought me back from the chamber, I saw that Gilly's cell was empty. Her blood still shone on the rusty manacles, but she was gone. I realized then what all the screaming and cheers had been about. My heart broke, and the pieces sank to the bottom of my soul. I sat in murky darkness and misery until, sometime later, I felt the tickle of tiny paws on my ankle. I opened my eyes and looked at my foot, sure that it was another rat. Instead, Pyewacket sat there looking at me, his eyes glittering. There was something in his mouth. I realized, to my surprise, that it was the packet I'd buried beneath the oak on the night of my arrest. "I have no eggs or meat or milk this time," I said, but I took it nonetheless, and I heard a voice clear as a bell ringing through my thoughts. "Keep it with you," he said. "Be sure you have it when the time comes." My execution was to take place the next day. As the cock crowed, I swallowed the packet, not sure how else to ensure that it would not be taken from me. Pyewacket watched, dark eyes glittering, and then slipped away into the shadows as the sun rose. Outside, they were setting out for firewood, bringing the children forward to watch. I heard the crowd gathering in the market square, calling for my death. I still hear their shouts echoing through my dreams. "Burn her! Burn the witch!" They pulled me out of the shadows, into the bright white light of day. The sun blinded me. My weakened eyes, which were accustomed by then to darkness, streamed tears, and I blinked uncontrollably for a few moments. I looked down at my rusted chains, my bloodied hands, my wounded and dirty feet, the stained rags of what had once been a decent dress. One last time, I turned my face to the sky and felt the sunlight on my skin. I was thin and weak and in terrible pain, but the fresh air and cool wind rejuvenated me. I moved forward, knowing I was taking what would be my last steps upon the earth. Time did a strange thing, speeding and slowing at once. As they walked me to the center of the market square, where the pyre had been laid, my senses sharpened. I took in every detail: the pebbles on the ground, the faces in the mob, the whorls and pocks on the individual pieces of firewood, the smell of the hot cross buns and fried eggs crows lit on nearby roofs, watching, waiting for my soul to rise, so they could bring it to him. I saw Janet Harlow and her daughters at the front of the throng, dressed in their new kirtles. He was there, in the shadows, watching silently as they brought me to the pyre and lit it. He could not save me, but he made the smoke smell of roses for me. I looked up at the clouds, trying to read them one last time as smoke filled my lungs and agonizing, searing pain washed over my entire body. My flesh and curses and wishes and dreams rose as one to the sky in billowing plumes of greasy smoke. And in the last moments, I felt myself lifted on black wings, and I too ascended. I went higher and higher into the sky until everything below me became tiny and insignificant. Then, suddenly, I was plummeting back down towards the square. I fell once more to the earth, unexpectedly grounded again, and found myself once more encased in flesh. I did not understand at first. I realized that somehow I was standing in the crowd, watching the thin figure of a woman writhing in the flames. I looked at my hands and found them once more sound and whole, encased in pale, healthy skin. But they were not my hands, at least not the ones I was used to. They were much smaller, and the nails were rounder. The skin was soft and smooth, no longer calloused and worn down by gardening and work. I looked down and saw that I was wearing a yellow kirtle. My feet, much smaller now, were encased in soft new shoes. I wiggled my toes and realized they were tiny. The screams coming from the inferno changed in pitch, suddenly becoming more insistent. I squinted and looked back at the figure writhing in the flames. Someone beside me spoke. I found Janet Harlow facing me with a creased brow and a worried look, her face inches from mine. "Elizabeth, is something wrong? You're pale." Not trusting my voice, I only nodded. A murder of crows took to wing, cawing all at once. I watched them go, hoping that they would carry Elizabeth somewhere fair. "You'd best not be bothered by a witch burning." Janet's eyes glittered. "Breathe deep, girls. That's the stench of evil being cleansed." This round of hunts will catch the lot of the ungodly, and they will burn. All of them will burn this time. I know it. We'll pray to that tonight. The minister's coming for dinner, so pay attention in case he asks questions. The screams stopped. The figure on the pyre went still. Beside me, Margaret reached for my hand. I looked at her, puzzled. She winked 3 times. I let a smile spread across Elizabeth's, my face. And then I winked back. Margaret leaned over to speak to Elizabeth, but it was Gilly who whispered into my ear. Gilly as she had been at 12, bubbling with glee and laughter. "We've some mischief to make tonight," she said. "We're too young for the Sabbat, but we can amuse ourselves well enough. I think we should hex the dyer's pots so he can only make black clothes. Wait till you see the girl's room. It's lovely. We even have our own ponies and proper riding kits, and our familiars. Mine is a kitten now. Oh, and we should heal little James. He's a good boy, despite her." Her voice dropped, and I saw a mischievous gleam in her eye. "I think our mother's a witch." The crowd was beginning to disperse. As the fire died and Janet led us away, I looked back one last time. He was standing quietly beside Minister Stewart, watching us go, his priest's collar shining bright white against the pale blue sky.
And that was To Dance the Witch's Circle Again, written by Morgan Sylvia. To Dance the Witch's Circle Again is a Dagaz Media production, performed by Jessica Taiga, sound designed by me, Fred Greenhalgh, with music by Blue Dot Sessions. And yeah, if that story didn't make you long for a time where you could get buck naked and dance around a fire blazing under a full moon, well, I guess we're just different people. I hope you enjoyed that witchy story of how magic can help the oppressed. Turning karma on you 3 times 3 can be absolutely devastating. Be careful how you treat your neighbors. We're all just one community here. And we are a community here on Undertow, and stay tuned to Familiar Haunts, more for your spooky season dark horrors. Next week, total change of pace, we have an original standalone radio play of a college radio DJ and the worst imaginable inbound caller. It is a news story by yet another of my familiar writers for this show, Sean French, another writer from Blood Forest and The Pulse, and also The Return of Blackout Point. It is a 2-person radio play, and it's crazy and scary and all the things you want for your Halloween night. Until then, Undertow is a production of Realm, executive produced by Fred Greenhalgh and Molly Barton. Thank you for listening, and stay spooky.
Are you looking for your next spooky-themed podcast? Well, Rattled and Shook is a weekly podcast featuring true horror stories sent in by real people. We have guests, themed episodes, and immersive sound design so you can really feel the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. Oh, and we've got a touch of that nostalgic, old-timey radio show charm. Join us. Rattled and Shook is available now wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Tom.
Okay, so you want to tell him, or you want me to tell him?
No. I got this. People out there.
Yeah.
People, lean in. Get close. Listen, here's the deal.
We got big news.
We got monumental news. We got snacktacular news.
Yeah, after a brief hiatus, my good friend Michael Ian Black and I are coming back.
My good friend Tom Cavanaugh and I are coming back to do what we do best.
What we were put on this earth to do.
To pick a snack.
To eat a snack.
And to rate a snack.
Scientifically.
Emotionally.
Spiritually.
Mates is back.
Mike and Tom eat snacks. is
A
back.
podcast for anyone with a mouth.
With a mouth. Available wherever you get your podcasts.